Now let's learn about how snails move. It's really cool to watch a snail move, and you have to be far enough away and still enough so that the snail feels safe and doesn't hide in its shell to watch this happen. The bottom slimy part of a snail is called its foot. And the foot doesn't have bones in it like our feet have bones in it. It's actually one big strong muscle. And we have something like that on our bodies, and that is our tongue. Our tongue is one muscle without any bones in it. So our tongue can move kind of like a snail can move. Because they don't have separate feet to walk on like many other animals, they use their one foot to glide along the surface. And they do this by turning their foot into a wave, and that makes them move forward. You can see that in the video of this one right here. Can you see his foot moving as a wave? Let me speed it up for you and maybe you can see it better. Did you notice the other two tiny snails in the video? Look for them. Have you ever wondered why a snail leaves a shiny trail behind it wherever it goes? Well, that's because the snail covers its foot with mucus, which sounds gross, but it's really helpful to the snail. And it does this for a couple reasons. First, the mucus keeps the snail from drying out. And as we learned earlier, if a snail dries out, it'll hurt the snail. Second, this layer of mucus around the snail's foot lets the snail walk or move over very dry surfaces. And lastly, it also lets the snail stick to things. So if the snail wants to climb straight up a wall, it can because it's sticking on there with its mucus. Here you can see a snail climbing on some monkey grass by sticking to it with its mucus. I'll speed it up a little bit so you can see better. Speaking of drying out, snails can do something really cool to protect themselves when it's really hot and dry out. They do something called aestivation. Can you say aestivation? Aestivation is like hibernation, but it happens in the summer. Instead of slowing their bodies down and resting and sleeping when it's cold and winter outside, snails aestivate or protect themselves from the heat and the dry air. And they do this by going completely inside their shell and then filling the opening of their shell with a layer of that mucus, and then it hardens and they stay nice and moist inside of their shell. Here's a picture of one that I found on my front porch that was aestivating to protect itself. Snails don't live a long time. Most snails only live to be 1 year old, but some snails can live up to 10 years old. And then if you had a pet snail or kept a snail in captivity, there have been some that have lived to be 25 years old. Snails have lots of predators. That means there are many different animals that like to eat snails. Lots of birds like to eat snails, small mammals like to eat snails like hedgehogs, and snakes like to eat snails. There are even some bugs and other snails that eat snails. Also, people like to eat snails. I don't really like to eat snails, but lots of people around the world in different cultures love to eat snails. I'd like to end this lesson with some pictures and videos of snails that I found in my own yard. While you watch these, see if you can identify the different parts of the snail. Can you see the foot waving? Can you count the antenna? Can you see the eye spot on top of the antenna? What color is the snail? Is it camouflaged?
Good morning, snail hunters. I wanted to show you what it looks like while I'm filming one of these snails. Pretty exciting. There's my camera. And I just stand here and look at it.
I hope you enjoy finding and observing snails in your own yard. And remember, your eyes work better than any camera out there. I'll see you next week.